Good morning, peace and blessings to you all. This is a morning reminder from Coach Amiin. Truly, to be honest, it's a reminder to myself first and foremost, but I felt compelled to share it with you, and I begin. It's in reference to the honor of a human being before God or the Creator. The Quran begs us to reflect on how respected we are by God by asking, do you seek that Allah Do you see that Allah has subject to you everything that is in the heavens and in the earth, and made complete to you his favor, and bestowed his grace upon you, outwardly and inwardly? Surah 31, verse 20. Despite all that we are given by God, there are still days that our freedom leads us to despair as we attempt to swim against the current of God's will, feeling the friction between what we want and what God knows we need. Despite our achievements and success, we still ask ourselves, how come I never feel good enough? How come no matter what I accomplish, I am never fully satisfied? We often do not feel good enough because we cannot reach true peace, contentment, and satisfaction separate from God. It's not through our actions, but through returning to God that we become enough, the whole we carry inside that we so desperately long to feel, comes to experience of once being unified with all of existence. After all, how can you long for oneness if you have only ever been a separate body? How can you long for perfection if you never experienced it? How can you long for an all encompassing love if you never tasted? If a prisoner had never lived outside, he would not detest the dungeon. Rumi. Our longing for something that this world has not been able to fulfill is the greatest evidence for a world beyond this realm. The Quran reminds us of a subtle reality where God planted the seed of faith, love, and unity in the fertile hearts of all humanity, known as the covenant of Allah. In the pre-eternal realm, before this world as we know it, every soul that one every soul that would one day manifest into an earthly form was asked by Allah, am I not your Lord? This soup of soul, vibrant in the symphony of affirmation, as every single being replied, yes, yes, we testify to the singularity of God. As a result of this covenant, it can be said that at the soul's level, every person, regardless of conscious belief, is fully aligned with the divine. Surah 7, verse 172. As a result of God's unconditional love, faith is your divinely gift birthright. Just as we cannot control our heartbeats or when our cells divide, our spirits are planted in the soil of God's consciousness. Whether or not we choose to water that seed, Islam's belief in the singularity of God as an innate part of what it means to be human. This is why the declaration of faith is seen as the beginning of a journey to fulfilling our purpose on earth. The fitra and the innate goodness of man. The innate alignment with the divine that resides at the heart of being human is often called the primordial essence, or referred to in Arabic as the fitra. The word fitra comes from a root word meaning to split or bring forth. This implies that our work on this earth is to be split the shell of our ego and bring forth the divine seeds. The divine seeds God has already planted in the garden of our spirits through the generosity of his love. The fitra is the innate disposition to believe in God, worship him, and believe in his oneness. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that all children are born with the inclination to worship God and live a life in surrendering to the divine. If left alone, a child's natural inclination to believe in God will continuously manifest. When someone follows a path rejecting divine love and agitating divine love and accepting evil, it is not as a result of his nature, but because of the influence of outside the environment in which he was raised. Despite despite the Quran consistently telling the believer to respect his parents, God also says that we have commanded people to honor their parents. But if they urge you to associate with me without no knowledge, then don't obey them. To me is your return, and I would inform you about what you used to do. Surah 29, verse 8. Regardless of what our parents or any other person chooses to believe, the fitra or belief in God's oneness, Tawheed, is part of the hardware of all human beings. While the software of our minds can be encoded in different ways based on life experiences and environment, the hardware of the fitra cannot be changed. As the Quran says, stand firm and true in your devotion and in your way of life. This is the natural disposition God instilled in mankind. Surah 30, verse 30. In our natural state of being, we recognize God's light because we carry an imprint of this light within our spirit. In essence, faith is not setting aside rationality, but rather returning to who you truly are and have always been. This is why many mystics have said that our goal on earth is not to submit to metaphysical mountains of spirituality, but rather to return to our original childlike state of fitra and purity. Rumi describes the importance of blossoming our innate faith and manifesting our purpose on earth through the following metaphor. One thing must not be forgotten. Forget all else, but remember this, and you will have no regrets. Remember and be concerned with everything else, but ignore this one. But ignore this one thing, and you'll have all done nothing. It is just as if a king has sent you to another country to carry out a specific task. You go and perform 100 tasks, but if you have not performed that particular task, it is as if though you have done nothing at all. Rumi. Rumi was referring to remembering our relationship with our Creator and the reality that some of us, and sometimes I'm guilty as well, we remember everything else except Him and our duty here on earth, which is the manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes, as some of the scholars in Islam have surely shown and said and pointed to clear evidence from Quran and Sunnah. Allah, we can't be the merciful, but it is our job to be merciful. Our task is to become a holy tree of loving kindness and to share the faithful fruits of our fitrah with the entire world. It is only when we truly believe in God and submit to Him that we are able to manifest our greatest potential as representatives of God's love on earth.